welcome to Learning Music with Pat. On the last segment, I started a little segment and it has to do with what instruments look like. And as I explained, I do the woodwinds here. This is what I'm a specialist in, but there are all kinds of instruments that people play, and they're not all woodwinds. And even the woodwinds have subdivisions. We have instruments with reeds, and we have instruments that don't have reeds. So I started to show you pictures of the instruments, and I got about halfway through, and I want to continue with that this morning, and then I'm going to gradually get into the difference between the reeds and the non-reeded woodwinds, and I'll go into that. So we're going to continue, and this is where I stopped. I stopped with the clarinet. And so let me get my pointer here, and we want to go back to the clarinet. That was the last instrument that I stopped, but I do want to start here. So this is the clarinet. It's one of my favorite instruments, and I've had years of training on the clarinet, and I absolutely love it. But I do want to say that it's one of the more difficult instruments to learn, because when you press the register key, you get more than an octave. They don't call it an octave key. They call it a register key, because it's not truly an octave that you get. You get an octave plus 5 other notes. And so when you hit that register key, it bounces up far more than an octave. It's almost like an octave and a half, or about an octave and a half that it bounces up. So it means basically that you have to learn 2 sets of fingerings, one for the upper register and one for the lower register. Whereas the saxophone and the flute, when you use the register keys, then it bounces up automatically to an octave, and the same is true of recorders and many of the other smaller instruments that I call the melody flutes. So let's take a look here at the clarinet. This would be your fingerboard. They are open hole. Now, you can buy a closed hole clarinet. I've never seen them, but they do exist, but I imagine they're very expensive. These are all open holes. This is your fingerboard. All of these keys on the side are called side keys. This is going to be the mouthpiece, and that's another thing I want to go into as soon as I get the chance, either this segment or next. The mouthpieces of instruments that have reeds. This is going to be the barrel. This is going to be the upper body until you get about here, and I don't know as you can see it, but there is a division here, and there's a little silver-like area right across. This is going to be the lower body. These are side keys over here, and this is the bell. So really, you have a few parts, and you have to be very careful how you put the instrument together, because if you don't put it together right, you can jam a piece of metal. You have to hold it in a certain way and slip in the body underneath a certain piece of metal. And so if you don't do it right, you can really injure the instrument, and then it's a big repair bill. Now, here are some other clarinets. This it's probably the B-flat clarinet like I just showed you, but they also have an A concert clarinet. I have one of those too. It's about an inch and a half longer, and it lowers the pitch. So instead of being in B flat, it's in the key of A. And but at fingers, everything is the same. This here is the alto, and like the alto saxophone, it has that neck piece that curves around. And here you have your fingerboard, you have your side keys, and this is your bell. Absolutely beautiful instrument. It is quite large, but the bass is really very large, and you can see it dips down like the tenor sax would do. Mouthpiece, neck piece, and with a little different shape due to the dip that's in it, and then your fingerboard, your side keys, and your bell. A very fascinating instrument. I actually saw an advertisement where they said that they could send you an instrument, a clarinet, in different colors. I've never seen them in any color except silver and black. I'm going to skip past this, and we'll go on to the flute. This is the way that you hold the flute. I wanted to bring this in so you would see the proper way of holding your mouth and see that the mouthpiece is built up. There is a hole in the mouthpiece, and it's built up around it, and you blow across that. And just so you can see the proper way of doing that, And here the girl is holding the flute, playing it. And remember, with the woodwinds, the left hand always goes on top. Her left hand is on top. Her right hand is on the bottom. This is a study. This is a doctor. I read the article, and he is checking to see if he can help her not to have an injury. One thing you've got to remember about instruments, once you play them for years and years, you can get all kinds of stress-related, overuse-related injuries. And he is checking on her for that purpose. But you'll notice if you play an instrument for a long period of time, that happens. And here we have somebody holding the flute. This is a proper way to do it, left on top, right on the bottom. Another picture of it. That's the flute. And I have a diagram of the flute. You can see this is going to be the head joint right here. It goes down to about here, and this is the mouthpiece. There's a little cap on the top of it. The cap, the only thing the cap does is it prevents air from getting out that way. If you're going to blow into it here and you don't have a cap, air is going to go in both directions, and you can't have that. If you're going to have music and you're going to play music, all of the air has to be going in the same direction, and then you finger it, and that changes the length of the tube and the way the air is emitted from the instrument, and that causes you to have the various notes. There is quite a science behind it. This is the mouthpiece, the head joint. This is going to be the body of the instrument, and then when you get from here on down, this is the foot joint. This is the fingerboard. These are all open hold, although you can get closed hold flutes as well. Well, most of them are closed. This is an open hold one. Most of them are closed, but you can buy them either way. And this is the foot joint, but there's no bell on it. The flute is an interesting instrument to play. I brought in a couple of pictures here. Let's see if I can get that over there. This is the head joint, and you can see this is the mouthpiece. This is from one of my flutes. And you can see the whole head joint, and it's built up. It's built up around the head joint. You blow across it. This is going to be the cap. The cap on mine doesn't work right, and I've scotch taped it in place, but as long as it holds that closed on top, it'll play the same. I use it all the time. And here's another picture of that where it's built up on the side. It is quite a build-up. Now, once in a while, I bring in a flute, and or it's not actually a flute, but it's designed to look like a flute, so you can see what it's like. If I have too much to carry, I just bring that in instead. This is going to be your piccolo. And the piccolo, this is wood, but you can get them in silver. They're about as large as the flute is. They play about the same, and they're absolutely beautiful instrument. I want to show you, let's see if I can get it here. This is what I want. Okay, this is my piccolo. This is a Gemeinhardt from Germany. It's a beautiful piccolo, and you can see how that built up around that mouthpiece. You can see it's extended on top. That little cap is right there. And here's the fingerboard. See, all of these notes are closed. And you don't have quite as many as you do on a flute. And here are all your rods and stuff like that. There's a group of side keys that you can't see, but it plays very much like the flute. It's a little bit difficult in the sense of the way that you blow into it, but it operates really about the same as the flute does. Now, for the other instruments, percussion, cymbals. I don't do percussion. These are the kettle drums. Interesting about the kettle drums is the fact that you can tune them and they can play different notes. Now, you're never going to get a scale out of them or a song out of them, but you can tune them to hit the notes, and you can actually discern the tone of it. And the tone can be different. It depends upon just how it's been tuned up. And it's a very nice instrument. They use them a lot in orchestras. This is a snare drum. They're smaller. You see them a lot in bands. This is a bass drum. My father once owned a bass drum that was the largest bass drum in New Hampshire. They can be very, very large. Sometimes in a parade, they have to have two people hold them as the person is playing them. They don't change keys. You can't tune them. They're a nice instrument, however. These are chimes. I've played those before. They can be a little difficult because it's not like having a piano keyboard, but it plays a little the same. And they are beautiful instruments. Here again, we're talking about percussion. This is a triangle. It's used just like a little sound thing. But in certain musical pieces, it'll end with just a little tap on a triangle. But they're a nice little instrument, but you're not going to play notes on them. You can see now with the xylophone, 3 little blocks of wood, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, arranged just like a piano keyboard, and this would be the equivalent of the white keys. So it gets a little confusing, but you can know where you are by looking at the top, and they play very beautifully. That's a xylophone. I've played those too. Here's another one, glockenspiel, and it's like the xylophone, but they're not wood, they're metal, and there you can see little extensions down beyond which give it the tone, and you have little mallets, and you can have different kinds of mallets depending upon how loud or how sharp you want the tone to be. But see the arrangement, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, and you can play, this would be like the white notes in a keyboard. You can play a lot with them, and you can use several mallets at once. There's a way of holding them in your hand, so you may have 3 or 4, and you may be playing chords on it, each mallet hitting a different metal piece. Here are the instruments that we deal with here. This is going to be the penny whistle. This is going to be a sassoto, the recorder, one of the melody flutes. This is going to be a tonette. This is another melody flute. This is going to be a song flute. This is going to be like a Shaw's and flutophone and another melody flute. These are the things that we work with in a class like this. Now here's the recorders. You can see the head joint is right here. It has a fipple mouthpiece. It has the labium. It has the body of the instrument. And down here, I'd like to push this over a little bit, is the foot joint right there. And that's the way that they're all made. Some can be pulled apart and some cannot be pulled apart. Here's another picture. This is one of mine. I like to get them in different colors. Head joint, labium, body, and foot joint. I'm just holding it up, and I brought it over to a photocopy place and just held it in place the way I wanted it, and got that picture of it. Here is a wooden one. This one is a German-made instrument, and it is a recorder. You can see the head joint, the labium. This is the body, and the foot joint is attached. You can't pull it apart. And so some of these wooden instruments, particularly, they don't all come apart. Some don't come apart at all, but most of the nice ones do come apart. This is the back side of one of my altos. I want you to see the tone hole in the back, which is the same as the tone holes in the front, but this is used and called a thumb hole, and it's used for octaves. And I don't think you're going to be able to see this, but right above it would be a little B with a circle around it, and that would tell me that this is a Baroque instrument. That's the only way you're going to know. So I wanted you to see that. I have shown the Baroque symbols before. Here, since the recorder is so simple, why not show it in a way that you can see through it? This is like a plastic, clear plastic instrument. Labium, mouthpiece, head joint. You can see there's nothing to it. This is the body, and the foot joint is down here. I don't show the whole thing. And if I were to take my baton, and I've done it before, you could stick it up almost all of the way until you get to be about here, and then you can't get it past this. It has a little place where air goes when you blow it in, but some of that is blocked off. You can't see it, though, in that picture. It's just the way that they're made. Here's the back side of it, and you can see the block, which becomes a part of the mouthpiece, and this would be the back, and this would be the thumb hole in the back. But basically, it's a straight shot, very clear. And it doesn't play very well, but that's because it was less than $1 to buy it. Here's the same thing, head joint. You can see the way that the mouthpiece is, the labium is here, and you go down here. This whole thing is the head joint, and then you have the body of the instrument. This is a clear plastic. I had to put it on a colored piece in order to be able to see it. These instruments are from Israel. This one is mine. It's a gill. This is also a gill made in Israel. And so it's made so that you can't pull it apart except at the top. You can take the head joints off, but you can't take the foot joints off. But they play very well. And as most of the more modern instruments are, they have the last two notes are really a combination of two little holes. And that helps you to get your sharps and your flats. But those two are Israeli. This is a drawing of one of mine that I did because this is a folded. I don't have a good picture of a folded bass. I've had the bass in, and I'll be bringing it in from time to time. But this is my drawing of it. And that's, you can see it folds over. That becomes the neck piece. This whole thing is going to be the head joint, the body, and that foot joint also can be removed. I didn't put the keys in for you to see, but there are keys in there. And this is a bass. This bass has a key arrangement because you can't stretch your fingers to play it. It's a very, very large instrument. They're very large. It's sometimes called the great bass, the straight bass, the big bass, but they're all in the key of C, and they're very, very large. Many times you play them standing up. And this is a bocal. It's a metal piece. If you're going to sit down, this is going to go above your head, and your mouth is going to be right here blowing into it. This is a labium. This is all going to be the head joint, the body, and the foot joint. And where you're going to maybe play it standing up, there is this little metal stand on the bottom. So when you play it, you can actually put it on the floor. And the instrument itself won't be on the floor, but it'll be on the stand, so it'll be protected. Here's another, I gotta watch my time here. Here's another picture. And here we have the folded bass. I drew this because this didn't have the folded bass on it, so I tried to kind of draw it in the same style as the others. The bass, and here we have the tenor, which is quite large, and this is going to be the alto, soprano, and this is the sopranino. The sopranino is the smallest one that's made, and this is the folded bass. Those are all the basic recorders. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you've got 6 of them. 6 basic recorders, but they all play very well. I'm not going to bother with this. The song flute, and this has no bell, very thin on the bottom, and you have the labium and a Fipple-type mouthpiece. This is the head joint, and this is the body. And there are little plastic pieces as a design feature between where the notes are. But those notes are geared so that when you put your hand on it, they're easy for your fingers to reach. It's been designed that way, and I do think it's a very nice instrument. It plays very well. The sasuto, penny whistle, recorder, tonette, song flute, flutophone, and a melody flute. These are the kinds of non-reeded instruments that we have and that I'm working with in here. Now, these are just some other pictures. This is a little recorder, very small. Now, I brought in this little one. This one here is this right here. And this little recorder is about at the same time. I got it at Wendy's for about $1.50, but it does play, and I like the color, and it's sized somewhat similar, a little bit larger than this, but not much. I buy them any size and any color, so that's what I do. These are sweet tones. I have a red one and I have a green one. They're made in England. They're conical because they come to a point, but they are like penny whistles. I have them on their side. You don't see the fingering in the front, but that's what they are. There they are. You can see the tone holes in the front. They play exactly alike, except I like the differences in the color, so I put them together. And this is all to help you to identify instruments that you see. This is a little penny whistle, black and white, not a particularly good drawing. This is an accordion. I've had this drawing in before. This is going to be a keyboard. This is going to be the fingerboard of the accordion. They're not that easy to play. My mother was an accordionist. And I think for now we're practically done. I have pianos and I have organs. I think what I'll do is kind of skip past those because we're not dealing with them. But they are beautiful instruments. Keyboards are beautiful instruments. And you have some that you can actually roll up. They're called roll-up pianos. I had 2 or 3 of them. And you can roll them up, carry them around, put them in a sack, and lay them on something flat to play them. The difficulty with those roll-up pianos, and I don't see many sold now, is that they don't last very long. They all die at some point. And so it's really kind of a waste to have them, but they're a novelty item. And they took off for a while. There were quite a few people that were getting them. I know I had a few. And the organ. This is a giant organ. My sister is playing it. She's on top. It is a tracker pipe, a Hamel tracker pipe organ, about 900 pipes on it, all fully tuned. And in fact, you don't see half of the pipes. They're in the back. There's another room filled with pipes. They have a chest room downstairs so that they can blow air into it. It's an original instrument, 2 keyboards, and plus a keyboard on the bottom that your feet move. It's really a giant, giant, beautiful instrument. Well, we don't have much time. I'm going to go into some more pictures next segment, and I want to start making comparisons between how the reeds work. If you're playing like an oboe, bassoon, saxophone, and clarinet, how do those reeds work? Because the instruments that we're dealing with, and most that I've shown you here, do not have reeds in them. There's a difference in the way that you play them. There's a difference in the embouchure, and I'm going to define what that is next time. So I hope that you will watch it to complete this process of becoming familiar with instruments of the orchestra. Please join me next time.